Hi Stampers, this is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located here in Twin Falls, Idaho. Coming in today to show you how to make this adorable shutter card. Again, my name is Lisa. I'm with Queen Bee Creations and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. If you're out there, please go ahead and leave a comment, like, share, whatever. It helps me to know that you're out there and that I'm actually talking to someone, and it also helps me pop up in the algorithms, which is helpful for my business because obviously I do this as a business. So if you do need any Stampin' Up! Supplies and you don't have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I'd love to help you out with that. I do this full time. Today we are making this card here, and it was a request. Somebody said they wanted to know how to do that shutter card technique, and so that's what we're doing today. Down here at my desk, I'm going to show you the set we're working with today. It's on page 33 of your new Stampin' Up! Catalog, and it's called Whiskey Business, and it is a red rubber stamp with cling adhesive, so you do need clear blocks, but they are very sticky. Then we're using the designer series paper back here on page 148, the In Good Taste, and that one is the one that had all of the wood textures and the tile and the palette painting, I guess, some fabrics, just lots of great textures. And we're using today the slat board, and I'm using that on the front of today's card as well as the inside. Okay, to get started, you're going to need to have an 5.5 by 8.5 scored at 2 1/8 and 6 3/8. Now if it's easier for you, just cut it to 5.5 by 8.5 and score 2 1/8 from each end. And that's going to get you the card base. To go on the front, you're going to need 2 pieces of designer series paper that are 2 inch by 5 3/8. I stamped our, I guess, decanter and the little glasses onto some very vanilla scraps, and I have them cut out. We're going to go ahead and color those with our Stampin' Blends. I have a Mango Melody, this is the lighter one, both of my So Saffrons, and a light Pool Party, as well as my Color Lifter. So this is how we're going to color the whiskey and glasses. I also want you to have the stitched rectangles, or at least be willing to cut pieces into rectangles. I use these on the front. I'm going to show you a little trick we did with them to get this size on the front, because we actually don't have a die cut this size, but I'm going to show you how we can make one, and it'll have the stitching all the way around just like we want. For the inside of the card, we have our standard inside layer, which is 4 inch by 5 1/4. We're going to lay over that some early espresso at 3 inch by 5 1/2, and another designer series paper at 2 3/4 by 5 1/2 that will go over the top. The 2 pieces that are going to come in from the side, it's going to be our shutters. These are 3 1/2 by 4, scored at 1/2 inch across the long side. So what you're left with in the middle here is 3 1/2 by 3 1/2. And then just for fun on the inside, I decided to put this little ring around it. You don't have to, I just decided I wanted a little something extra on the outside. And this one I did in Crumb Cake. We can do this one here in Early Espresso, but all I did was I laid the same die cut that we're going to use on the inside to cut our hole, and I laid it inside of the scallop circle that was just slightly bigger, and I ran the 2 of them through the machine with it was actually a spare circle I had, but just any piece of scrap paper, and it's going to give you this ring. And so we're going to adhere that around the little peekaboo hole. Oh, and I die cut this. I was saying that for the sentiment on the outside, none of the rectangles were really the right size. By the time I got these ones out, and they were, they were too long. So what I did with this one is I laid it in the die cut machine, and I ran it through, and I cut out the whole piece. But then I went over and I laid my die cut right here, or you can actually lay it like this, and cut it off, and so this gave me the stitching on the end, but it made it smaller. You can also do that by having one of your other dies. I went ahead and let's see, this was the one. I stamped it down at the bottom of this piece. And then I laid my die cut across the middle, so it was giving me the stitched upper side, but it also cut out this one. So I ended up with two, plus a kind of a smaller rectangle that has stitching all the way around it. So this actually got me 3 out of 1. But just know that anytime you want a rectangle out of these stitch things and one of the die cuts is not the right size, don't panic. We can just move this around. You cut one a little slightly bigger, and then you lay this where you want the extra stitch line to go, and then you have more. So how fun is that? Okay, so we have all of our pieces, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the little decanter and our glasses, and I'm just going to give those a quick coloring. And all I did was I took the Mango Melody, the lighter one, and I gave it a little bit of accent around the outside. And Stampin' Up! Is really good about giving you kind of shading on the stamp itself. So if you follow the shading that the artist gave you, you're pretty on track, because obviously they've gone to art school, they know what they're talking about. I'm just guessing. So I'm just coming along, and like I said, this is the darker So Saffron, just giving it some accents. And then I'm going to come in with my light So Saffron, and I'm not going to color everything, but I'm going to come really close to it. I'm kind of leaving a little bit of blank in the middle, and then I'm going to come in with the blender, and I'm just going to blend that across. So that gets the whiskey. Now for the glass, I wanted to give that a little bit of reflection, because glass can be a little bit blue, but I didn't want too much, so I'm only using the light, and I'm coming in and just giving it a few touches. Again, following the artist's guidelines, kind of. And then I'm going to come back in with the color lifter again and just blend it. Let's put a little on the bottom. And for something like this, when you want to have lots of depth and it's kind of clear, you don't want to lay down the ink too heavy. Normally when you're coloring flowers or something, I'll tell you that we need to keep laying down color and laying down color and laying down color, clear till it, you know, leaks through the back side. We definitely want it to do that. But the more ink that you have on there, the more it's going to blend together. But I wanted this to leave a little bit of white space around it. I don't know if you're quite picking up on that. Hopefully you'll see it on my blog and you get a little better idea of the little blue that's in there and how it's kind of clear in the middle. And we can do the same kind of thing with the decanter. Again, I'm only using the light. I'm gonna give this kind of a quick color. I know you don't want to see me do this for too long. We have a card to get to. Now I'm doing this with Memento black ink. You do not want to do this with StazOn. The StazOn would bleed. We use StazOn if you're going to be using a water-based something. So if you're using your watercolored pencils or the blender pen, the aqua painter with some re-inkers. There's lots of reasons we use StazOn, but that's for water-based. For alcohol-based, you want the Memento black. So those are all colored. Okay, let's bring in that card base I was talking about. So I've scored this 2/8 of an inch from each end. And then we're going to fold this into the middle. So we're just making sure that it lines up nice and pretty. And then we'll come in with the bone folder. Then for the outside, we have these pieces that are 2 inch by 5 1/8. Those are going to go on either side on the front. Here I have our new Stampin' Seal. This stuff is fabulous. I really like it. It's a lot stickier than our snail was, but still easy to use and has more in the container. So more is always a good thing, right? Okay, so there's the front of our card, and this is just a standard gatefold card. And so you can do any number of things. We don't have to do the shutter card. That's just how I'm starting. On the inside, I'm going to go with a standard inside layer of 4 inches by 5 1/4. I find that sometimes even on my snail, if I get a little bit of glue down here, it doesn't want to roll very well. And then I have these pieces that are going to go over the middle. I did our die cutting already. I was making sure I had that piece. But what I have is 3 inches by 5 1/2. And then this is 2 3/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm just going to glue one over the top of the other. And then I'm going to take that circle die, the 1 7/8 inch circle from our layering circles. That was one of these, the smaller one, the straight. And I'm going to cut a peekaboo hole out of the middle. So that's going to get me this. And that's going to go right here in the middle. But I want this to pop up a little bit because we're going to have the slider pieces that are going to go back and forth. So I want them to be able to have a little bit of room to do their gliding. And so I'm going to adhere this with Stampin' Dimensionals. Now I want to make sure that they're up kind of high and down kind of low because we don't want the actual shutters to interfere with them. We don't want it to run into them. We want it to just have the space to go back and forth. And I just have the smaller ones out because when we adhere the whiskey decanter and glasses to the front, I'm definitely going to want the smaller ones. But we do have 2 different sizes. And we also have the strips, and the strips would be okay for this, the adhesive, foam adhesive strips, because we're not using them in conjunction with the Stampin' Dimensionals, because remember, they're not the same height. Okay, so I'm just centering that in the middle on the Dimensionals. So you following me so far? We good? We have our gatefold card, our little piece in the middle, popped up on Dimensionals. Then I have the sentiment I want to be in the middle of that hole. Now remember, usually I have you stamp before adhering, but I want to make sure this is perfectly centered. So I'm going to come in with my early espresso ink now and pray this works on camera. And stamp this right in the middle. Yay, it worked! Now we have our shutters. For the shutters, remember I had these pieces that were 3 1/2 by 4. Now I went and found the middle. I used my handy dandy ruler that has this 0 in the middle, and it's 4 inches across, and so my middle was going to be at 2 inches up. Half of 3 1/2 is 1 3/4. And so I made a little X there. And then I just continued it down to the corners. So if you watch, I'm just going to go corner to corner on this. Remember in math class how we used to find the center of things by drawing this little X? So that pinpoint in the middle, that's going to be our dead center. The pack of paper is the In Good Taste. So that was the one that has all these tile and wood, some fabrics and palette paints. This is a great set, and it's got more paper than our other packs. They're all 12 by 12, but there's 24 of them. I think normally we only have 12 in a pack, but this is like a mega pack. And of course, since my husband's in construction, I love that they're earth type materials or building materials. Okay, so now I've got my 1/2 inches scored up here. And then I made my center point and then extended down to the corners. And now I can come in with the paper snips and just snip up to that middle. So I'm going to put my pencil on the inside so that nobody sees that. I could erase it too. But this is going to be our shutter. Okay, so we're going to bring our card back in. And this is where I was saying you want the fold to go down. And then you're just going to slide this in here. That's why I have the dimensionals down really low so that this doesn't run into it. But I want to kind of find the middle. And then I'm going to line it up with my inside paper. So I don't know if you can see that, but I've got this guy lined up on the edge of that inside paper. You do not want it all the way to the fold. You want it in just a teeny bit. And then you want to use a very strong adhesive. Oh, and we're also double checking that these little points, when the card is closed, don't bump into this fold. And they won't if we've done it right. Always good to check. But then we're going to come in with Stampin' Seal Plus, and we're going to, or tear and tape, something stickier, and we're going to run that down this edge. So I'm just kind of holding this in place and then running that down, making sure I'm centered, and then I'm just going to close the card. And what that's going to do is that's going to pick up that shutter. So see, now this one goes back and forth. And it's this fold here on the inside that's giving us our action. So that's one. Then we're going to come in with the second one. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to feed this in, making sure it doesn't, you know, bump those points. But we're going to watch it. See how there's, you know, they're off center here? We want them to be centered on, so that they're even, you know, not poking out too much. And then inside the fold here, I've been lining it up with the inside, kind of looking to make sure that those points don't go into the fold. If you can see that, but they're not going into that fold over there. Now I'm going to hold this steady. And then I'm going to put my Stampin' Seal Plus. Ugh. Still getting used to this new one. And there we go. Now we have our shutter. And it closes. So how fun is that, right? Now all we have to do is decorate the front. And like I said, I did that with this stitched rectangle. This one was 3 inches by 4 3/8. That was out of this set here. Oh, we can put this ring on. We'll do that too. And then that sentiment that we cut should be right here. There we go. That's going to go on the front as well. So because this is a shutter card, I don't want to put adhesive all the way across my entire rectangle. I only want it on half because I want this to fold open and go with the card, not seal it shut. So we're going to come in with that. We're going to center it in the card front. It still opens up. I'm going to put this ring in here, so I'm going to take my fine tip, and this has mono adhesive in it. We also sell a fine tip glue. I just find the mono adhesive easier to clean up, so I just found this on Amazon. I have a link on my blog. There's our shutter. So this is where I was saying I wanted to do this on those mini dimensionals. And I just wanted to pop this layer up. I like to do fun fold cards that are easy. And once you get the hang of this one, it is pretty easy. And whenever somebody's super stuck, I have gone on Zoom or we've done FaceTime and I've helped them out. That's part of my job as your demonstrator, is to help you get through some frustrations, because my whole thing is Stampin' Up is stress-free. We are in a no-stress zone. So don't ever get hung up on something. I welcome you calling me and I will help you figure it out. Don't get stressed. Okay, so I'm going to put dimensionals on half of my glass because the other half is going to touch the bottle, and the bottle is already raised. So we don't want to have more dimension there, we just want them even. So I'm going to put regular glue on this side and the dimensionals on the other side. And then see, if I do this one, I would want these 3 corners, but not the 4th, because that 4th corner is going to already be raised by overlapping this glass. So if we're looking at it, we don't want to do this corner. So we're going to do the other 3. And then we're down to just our sentiment. And there you go. There's our finished card. This glue right here is our mono adhesive glue. It's the regular Tombow multi-purpose glue. And then I bought this bottle on Amazon. I'll put a little link up for where it is, but you can get these really cheap on Amazon, and it gives me that really fine tip. You can also get the Stampin' Up fine tip glue. This is great too. For this one, what I do, it had a little rubber cap on it, but I found if I stick a pin in it, this is a straight pin from my sewing box, and it keeps that tube, I guess, I don't know what you call it, the needle point, clean. For our Stampin' Up version of it, they have a little pin in the lid, and so I don't know if you can catch that. So then you would just line this up and feed it down. And this glue is a lot like the, what was it called? Crystal Effects. And so I have seen people use this as crystal effects. If you just make a puddle of it in the middle of a flower or something and let it dry, it will dry kind of shiny. The mono adhesive and our Stampin' Seals, if you get them kind of on your card, you can use one of those adhesive removers, the little chunk of rubber, and it'll pull it off, and I really like that. But they're both great. Don't get me wrong, I do love all Stampin' Up products. I wouldn't be able to stand behind it if I didn't. So there's our card. All finished. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you being here. And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email or pop on here and I will be glad to help. Thanks for joining me. Bye.